Here to offer some insights, Tony Perkins, president of the Family Research Council. Good to see you today.
Shannon, good to be with you.
And we had so many conversations during the election season about whether or not people like you would be able to step up and say, despite flaws and allegations, that you would be willing to support Trump or at least vote for him. But now he is the man you think is the best to deliver on this agenda to evangelicals.
You know, what was interesting at the beginning, this was a competition between personalities, and that didn't work so well. And it was not about policy, but in the end, it actually turned into a policy election. Post-election polling showed that 59% of voters who voted for Donald Trump did so based upon the Republican Party's strong platform and its strong positions on life and religious liberty, which Donald Trump wrapped himself in. There's never been a clear contrast between the two parties. So in the end, it was a policy election, meaning that this administration is going to have to deliver on those policy promises.
Yeah, and one of the top issues we saw in exit polling was the Supreme Court. And for voters who said it was a top or one of their top issues, they overwhelmingly voted for Trump instead of Mrs.
Correct.
Clinton. So we'll get a name from him soon. How closely are you and other conservatives on the religious right watching this election?
Well, the difference here, Shannon, is we're not only watching, we're working. We're having conversations with those at the very center of this process. This is not like conservatives are on the outside looking in saying, hey, we hope they do the right thing. Our faces aren't pressed up against the windows. We're actually inside having the conversations with the decision makers in this process. I mean, I've talked with Vice President-elect Mike Pence, Reince Priebus, all of those involved in the process. I'm very excited. I was at the Council for National Policy, this meeting here this weekend in Washington, which I also serve as president of. 450 conservative leaders. I tell you what, ecstatic, totally excited. I haven't seen this kind of excitement in over a decade because they believe, and I believe, that President Trump is going to move his agenda, which is the conservative movement's agenda, with diligence and determination, and America is going to see the change that they voted for.
Okay, so on things like defunding Planned Parenthood, appointing pro-life justices, on rolling back some of the guidance documents that the Obama administration issued on things like telling schools that they have to take certain transgender policies. I mean, how much of that do you think he's really going to deliver on, and how will you hold him accountable if he doesn't?
Well, I expect that he's going to do everything he said he was going to do, and I think you're going to see these executive orders. There's a project that's been underway to look at the executive orders, some 200 of them, combing through those that can be taken away immediately and sanity restored to Washington. I think you're going to see reconciliation move forward to defund the bulk of Planned Parenthood and Obamacare. Those two, as we saw in December of last year. So I think they're going to move again with diligence and determination to keep their promises. And if they don't, I mean, as you pointed out, 81% of evangelicals voted for Donald Trump. Those that were 26% of the electorate. That's a record number. And they're not going back, they're not disengaging, they're not going back home to business as usual. As we saw this weekend, they are here to stay and are going to be involved and want to help Mr. Trump be successful.
I got to ask you about something that is along the lines of some things we've talked about in the past. This letter from a designer that came out earlier this week that said they would not dress Melania Trump, they didn't want to serve her, and they urged other designers to do the same thing, saying that they were an artistic family-owned business, that they had principles. And I kept thinking of the language of so many of the cases you and I have talked about bakers and photographers and florists who said, I will serve people, but I won't take part in certain same-sex ceremonies, those kinds of things. It seems like that idea of freedom of who you serve and what you do and don't do, I mean, that debate is starting all over, but from the left.
Well, it's interesting. Their tolerance is a one-way street. And you know what? I'm fine with that. I'm fine if they don't want to serve. I think they have the right. If they're in business and they should not be forced to have to make a dress for somebody, to serve serve as a caterer or whatever. If they don't want to do that, they shouldn't be forced to. But you're right, it's a double standard. In fact, this week on Thursday in Washington State at the Supreme Court, Baronella Stutzman had her case where she's a florist that is being prosecuted by the state for not doing the wedding of a same-sex couple. So yes, there is clearly a double standard. But look, I think people should be free to engage in business with whom they want to. They shouldn't be forced. We live in a free society.
Yeah, my unscientific Twitter poll came out the same way, saying whoever you are, whoever you do or don't want to serve, that people think it's a conversation you should at least have.
I think we're going to see where the true intolerance lies, and I think we saw it Friday night on Broadway.
Oh yes, as Leland discussed with the panel. Tony Perkins, always good to see you.
Hey, good to